Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Thriving in Intersectionality podcast, a podcast created to make space for all of the layers, all of the categories, all of the person that we are. I had a guest recently give me one of the best recommendations ever by saying, I go on podcasts and everybody wants to talk about my work. And Dr. Lola said, this is not about your work. This is about you. And he said, this was different. And I love it because it reminded me that, okay, this is still grounded in why I created this space. And so I love being here with you, Ashley. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So before we dive in, I am going to take a minute to explain the word intersectionality. The name of the podcast is Thriving in Intersectionality. And so if you're listening and this is your first episode, I love to take a minute to share what exactly does intersectionality means. And it refers to a framework. And I love the word framework is intentional. And Kimberly Crenshaw, who coined the term, uses that word as well. It's a framework that recognizes our multiple aspects of identity, such as gender, profession, lived experience, upbringing, personal history, and even social context. How all of these things overlap and interact and create very unique experiences for every one of us. And these experiences could be privilege, but it could also be benefits. It could be barriers. It could be bias, right? So depending on how we understand it, how we leverage it, how we lean into it, it could be super powerful, and it shapes how we navigate the world and how we lead in our work. And so I use this as an entry point for us to understand the people I'm having conversations with and their journey to where they are right now. So today I have with me Ashley Gibson, and I'm going to read a brief bio about Ashley before I bring her in. Ashley is the founder of Meaning in Practice. She's a psychotherapist and national certified counselor with advanced training in EMDR. She specializes in helping high achievers combat burnout and workplace trauma. But I love to also talk about the fact that before entering clinical practice, she has spent 13 plus years as a marketing executive in mission-driven organizations. And she was on the original marketing team for Broadway's smash hit, Hamilton. She now uses that executive present experience and clinical rigor to diagnose the structural failures that take advantage of the very people who care the most. Definitely looking forward to hearing about that transition from marketing executive to clinical practice. Ashley works with nonprofits, healthcare organizations, and mission-driven businesses to identify the specific places where organizational design converts genuine purpose into systemic exhaustion. Her approach is clinical, structural, and unapologetically direct. I love it. Nice to have you here with me, Ashley. How are you doing today?
I am doing so great, Dr. Lola. Thank you for having me. Although I wish I was in San Diego, like you.
Well, San Diego in summer is not necessarily our favorite, but you're on the East Coast. So there's still a huge difference with the humidity.
A little humid over here, but I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Thanks for being here, Ashley. All right. So let's learn a little bit more about you beyond the bio, the parts that people don't know, right? So when you think about the word intersectionality, what aspects of your identity have most shaped who you are today?
I had so much fun thinking about this question, and I came up with way too many things, so I'll try to keep it brief.
Hey, share as many as you can. This is my favorite part. We could sit here all day. I'll be happy.
Well, my parents got divorced when I was very young. And so I grew up across these two households. And I've been thinking a lot lately about how I had to learn to read and adapt and code switch in two very different environments back and forth. And now I'm a single parent myself. That inheritance has really come full cycle for me. at the same time, my grandparents were super involved. And I think people who grew up, especially on the East Coast, but I'm sure all over, can really relate to this idea of multi-generational, if not households, then family systems, right? They were very consistent for me. And on both sides of my family, my grandparents actually have known each other since my parents were teeny tiny. They were stationed in military bases together. And so that generation is military. The next generation down, my parents, we all moved and settled in the East Coast. We're government contractors. My grandfathers were both NSA. And then you have this third generation where, okay, I want to do something mission driven. I want to work for a nonprofit. Not that it's not mission driven, but I think a lot about the, like I say, the inheritance, right, of generationally what was passed down. So I'm not a military brat, but my parents were, and that absolutely informed their upbringing, which informed mine, and looped all the way back around to how my grandparents were involved in interfering in my life in good ways. The other thing that comes to mind when I think intersectionality is I am neurodivergent. I have ADHD, and I wasn't diagnosed until pretty recently when I was, my daughter is 3 now. So it's been about 3.5 years. I was pregnant when I was diagnosed. And it's been really interesting because at the same time, I was studying clinical mental health counseling. And so to have that personal lens on it and to understand the extent to which I had been masking because I'd been quite high functioning. I'd completed a bachelor's and 2 master's degrees before I knew. So it gave a real clarity to what had been coming up for me before, and now it definitely informs the way I move through the world, but also the way I interact with my clients, both in the therapy room and in the boardroom as well. And then the last thing that kind of came to mind there was I'm a millennial. You know, we came of age in that era right as the internet was yet to be in our pockets, and then it was. And before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about being yourself on social media and online, and it's not a given, I think, in the way that it would be for more recent generations, right?
Yeah. Tell me about the millennial. I'm millennial as well, and
Yeah.
there's a little bit of the sadness around it because it's interesting that you bring that up about technology and digital, because my team recently was trying to put together a clip about me, and they said, we want to make this clip about the early Lola, not the you. And so they asked me to put together pictures of me growing up. And I felt a little bit sad because I'm an immigrant. I moved from Nigeria. When I moved with my laptop. I didn't have a cell phone that took tons of pictures like I have with my kids. And then my laptop crashed when I was in grad school. So even the pictures I took. And so I was feeling a little sad because I like texting my sister, do you have pictures of me from my bachelor's graduation? Do you have pictures of me with mom and dad? And then my parents have passed on. And so I was emotional because I kept thinking, I feel like I don't exist. Like we have physical photo albums in the house, like stacks of photo albums because we would do photo shoots, but they are not digital.
Yeah.
And so I felt a little sad, and my sister was like, go to Facebook. And so I had to find some things on Facebook. But I still felt sad because there were key moments of growing up that I wish I had captured in pictures, but it wasn't the norm.
Well, I just heard you say I felt like I didn't exist. And isn't it so interesting that unless we have a digital format, it doesn't feel real anymore somehow?
Yeah, I know. And I'm like, when did this become so normal? Because I'm scrolling through all my Google photos and the years. I can't find anything beyond certain years. And I'm like, yeah, it makes sense because we didn't all have iPhones in our pockets taking pictures of everything. So anyway, it was just a little sad because it's very recent for me and me texting my sister and just talking about where are all our pictures. I guess the memories live in our brains.
And, you know, as somebody who I spend my clinical hours working with memory, right? Like literally the use of neuroscience in trauma recovery. And so what we can and can't retrieve. I saw a client earlier this week who needed to trigger her hard traumatic memories by looking at some photos of herself that age, because that's what activated the memory network. But it really is, as I was thinking about this question before we met, the intersection of generations and technological advancement is so interesting to me, especially with the onslaught of AI.
Yeah, yeah. I think we were still getting comfortable with technology as millennials, and then AI came.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know what it's like not to be technology filled. I mean, technology was already there before AI,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're raising kids who, I remember us struggling. My first child is 13 now, and I remember struggling like, he doesn't need an iPad yet. He doesn't need an iPad yet, and we finally got him one. But now it's normal. Everybody's kid has some gadget. It's not. So we know what it's like to be without this technology world, and we appreciate the world without it, but we also see the good it can do. And so we are treading this path of, how do we balance it? I can get rid of all my social media, like Ashley.
I know, I shared with Dr. Lola at the top, but yes, I deleted my social media a few years ago, which has been tricky moving into a space where I'm now speaking and teaching and, writing. Oh, I guess I should have an online presence. But it feels inherently uncomfortable. And then, you add that layer for me of, I came from marketing background, so I'm hyper aware of coming across as salesy. And at the same time, I'm now a clinician who has an ethical code to follow. And I can ethically post online, but it makes me think about what a potential client, a therapy client, might be Googling and seeing. And it's a relational act being in a therapy room. So I don't want them to have a preloaded opinion in certain ways. So it's a really interesting dance being in these two worlds now, for sure.
Yeah. And I like that tied to your work too. I think ultimately we're all just going to need to be intentional when it gets to technology. Like, we can't avoid it, but we can choose which one, and we can control. But just knowing that once you put stuff out, it's out. People are like, oh, once you put it there, just assume it's out.
100%.
So decide wisely.
Yes, assume that it lives forever.
That it lives forever. So imagine your children seeing it years from now. Imagine your family, or just assume it lives forever, and be okay with it, or don't post it. Well, it's nice to learn so much about you with just one question, Ashley. See, that's the point. So when you I guess when you look back, what part of your story do you think people most often overlook? When they look at your accomplishment today, what part of your identity and your background?
It's interesting because, we talk about like the neurodivergence of it, right? I don't show the struggle. Like I said, I got all these degrees and I was valedictorian, blah, blah, blah. And it's actually been for myself about, they don't understand the way I've had to integrate it into my identity as I have learned more about myself, right? And I have grown in my own self-confidence, or my ability to, you know what? Yeah, I do have these credentials and I can speak on this. So even when I made that change, right, flipping from this long, wonderful marketing career, I did a lot of personal work on this idea of, wow, like 6-year-old me would have killed for this job, and now I'm walking away. And there's a real incongruence there around identity that was coming up for me. And so that part of the struggle that people don't see, of we're all integrating in this kind of spiralic way, right? The way our identities grow and change. It's developmentally appropriate, and it's expected, it's wanted, and it's still, it's something that I would want to lead with more if it was appropriate to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what we're doing here. And so now I want to hear about your journey a little bit, which we've kind of mentioned in your bio and also as you're talking. Can you walk us through your professional career path a little bit? How did you get here?
I ask myself that every day. No. Like, why did I walk into this room again? No, but I was a theater kid. I thought I was going to be on stage. And I am now in a different way. But I went to school for business. Really enjoyed running this student theater company, loved that production aspect of it. So went straight out of my undergrad business degree into a master's program in New York City, where I was studying performing arts management. So right away was thrown into this master's program where it was a very, very small cohort. There was like 5 of us, and no pressure, but the cohort was built around us, and I was the first person picked. And so it was like, okay, I'm setting the tone. I'm the only marketer in this cohort. But no, at that time, it was a great time to be in New York. I did my residency at the Public Theater, which produces free Shakespeare in the Park, as well as has incubated anything from Hair and Chorus Line to Hamilton, which premiered while I was there. I was in that original marketing team. I was in the room where it happens. It was very cool. I always joke that I peaked very early in my marketing career, because once you do that, like, where are you going to go? But no, it was an incredible experience. I was so grateful. We launched it, and then it moved to Broadway. I moved on. I went back to the DC area, had a series of roles in different cultural organizations, mainly in marketing, although I sat on quite a number of nonprofit boards, both as a governance chair and a president and this, that, and the other. Really dipped my toe into that. Was also teaching nonprofit management as an adjunct at my alma mater at that time. Really found that I enjoyed the teaching element of it. And then eventually wound up in a VP of marketing role in DC, which led to this regional marketing role for big Broadway producer, up and down the East Coast, where I landed in Richmond as my home base. And during the pandemic, I thought, this is super fun. And also, I'm kind of bored. I want to do something that feels not that the arts isn't meaningful. I always have to lead with that, but more one-to-one, intimately meaningful. And I'd always had this inkling in the back of my mind that, like, I think I would be a good therapist. So it's funny to run with a thing you think you're going to be good at, but I went back to school. I got another master's from William and Mary. And like I said, I had my daughter, while I was in school, got divorced, and so was juggling a lot. But in the past few years it's been lovely to understand this intersection of what drew me to this mission-driven cultural arts tourism world is the same thing that draws me to sitting in the room with an individual and working through their trauma. And the psychology behind how we motivate behavior change was actually really applicable in marketing, and now I just apply it differently as a psychotherapist. And then I bring all of that together and decided, why not keep the fun going? And now I work at this intersection of organizational psychology for mission-driven organizations, specifically looking at where is that gap between what a mission-driven or founder-led business intends and what's actually happening, right? We know you have a great mission, somewhere it's fallen apart along the way. So I bring that clinical lens, and I do like facilitation. I get to do my speaking and my podcast engagements, and love that theater kid in me. And then, I see clients every week. I was seeing clients this morning. So it's a varied life, and it's a really intentional, as you said, portfolio career that I've built. Yeah.
I love it. And I love, as you were talking, and how you tied it all together. Like I always say, no part of our experience is wasted.
No, not at all.
When it comes together, it's going to come together in a way that makes sense to us.
Yes.
Maybe not someone else.
Sense to me.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we would think, theater person, marketing person, and then doing this. But I think, even right from the beginning, you've always been using that phrase, 100%. Mission driven. Intentional, purposeful, and that journey to finding what that purposefulness is for each of us is what makes our stories and our paths so unique.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, and I agree. It is that unique intersectionality of it, right? And I can totally look back and go, oh yeah, I did my undergraduate thesis on social capital, and that's still a lens that's informed everything I've done since. You were saying earlier that idea of framework, right? What I like to offer both my therapy clients and my consulting clients is a framework, because it's a lens through which I see the world, and the social
Right.
capital piece is part of that.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you. How do you think your own experiences influence
Mm.
the way you show up for your clients today?
Yeah. You know, it was really interesting. When I first started seeing clients, I was still working my day job. I was day job marketing, clients in the evening, toddler momming, and I did not realize I was burned out until I started treating clients who were burned out. And to see it clinically, we always joke, you know, with other clinicians, you can do for others, it's hard to do for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I'm sure any of us in a helping profession or coaching or teaching feel that way as a parent. And so this framework exists because I finally could name what I was already living, what I had been living for a long time, and what I'd been watching in all of these organizations, where the parting line is always like, well, you knew what you signed up for when you worked for this
Mm.
organization. You knew it was going to be late hours. You knew it was going to be a lower salary. It was asking a lot of me and of my colleagues. And then I was seeing it sitting in the therapist chair.
Mm. Yeah. I love that when you said that though, that you can treat it in other people and not recognize it in yourself. Because sometimes it's easy to fix others, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to fix
Oh,
other
way
people.
easier. Yeah. Yes, my
And then
family would tell you that, yes, I fix everybody else. Yeah.
I like it. I think it's in everything. It's why I always tell the moms, the friends, the girlfriends, sisters in my life, like we do so much for the kids. And when I started, when I saw a therapy a few years ago, I would tell everybody about it, and they were like, "Oh, you have a therapist? Like, why do you have a therapist?" Oh, because I needed it.
Yeah.
I was burning out silently, and
Mhm.
nobody could tell because I was doing so much for everybody else.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and so I think that's a real thing, is being able to, like, you can do and be
Hmm.
pouring from empty for a long time.
Yes. Yeah. We've been conditioned to believe that caring enough is going to get us through, right? I really care about what I'm doing, and so everything is worth it, and I'm going to make it work. And we're now at the point where systems are taking advantage of that. And that's kind of the drum
Yeah.
I'm trying to beat.
Yeah, we're not AI. We're not a machine. We're not limitless.
No.
Like, you can't run on empty. You
Yeah.
need to also be getting filled up somewhere.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, thank you for sharing that. I think we kind of started talking about your work a little bit, but a little bit more about your work. I mean,
Mhm.
through all the identity journey and the navigation, you
Yeah.
landed where you are today. So, tell us a little bit about your work.
Yeah, really, burnout is a hot topic term, but we often think about it from this like individual resilience lens, right? We were just saying, I have to push harder. Nobody knows because I'm keeping it all together. I'm keeping all those balls in the air. And I got really interested in, seeing this as a clinician. Okay, I can help an individual client understand the scope and work through their own personal reframes and baggage that they might be carrying, right? Their own big T or little t trauma, we would say. But where I really want to make change is at the systems level. And so my work is for people who are willing to hear it and to make change. Because you and I both know there's going to be organizations and leaders out there who aren't interested in being called in, right? My
Mhm.
job is to call in, not call out. And that element of, you have a good mission, right? You know that everyone agrees and believes in it. And somewhere along the way, it's drifted. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's drifted because you decided to pursue a grant for something you kind of apply for, but why not, right? But
Mhm.
more often than not, it's drifted because there's that mismatch between we say we stand for this, right? Here are our values, but here's how we're actually treating our people.
Yeah.
And so when I named it as a clinician individually, I could then zoom out and look at the whole pattern. And what's been really fun is I get to use 13 years of experience sitting in those big boardrooms, thinking about, okay, where could change actually happen, and then using the clinical tools I have, these frameworks, right, about how we are inherently social creatures. We go
Yeah.
back to the value of social capital. And two primates walk into a room, the first thing they're trying to assess is, are we on the same team? And is this a friendly or a hostile interaction? And just looking at yourself in that framework can offer you a lot of, oh, we thought we were trying to encourage people to be innovative, but actually we have this element of over control, right? We think we're holding people to a level of high accountability, but in reality, the pressures we're putting or the expectations we're modeling as leaders is creating this kind of structural recipe for nervous system collapse.
Oh, wow. I love that you are talking about the kind of organizations you're working with. They are mission driven, purposeful, nonprofits, healthcare. Because yes, you started this because you are on a mission. And sometimes that mission gets diluted, or you forget about the people that you have brought with you, right? You're thinking about the customer, was trying to make the world better for the customer. What about your people?
Yeah. And I really believe that term mission driven can apply to for-profit organizations too, right?
Exactly.
Because there are so many incredible teams out there who are doing really good, interesting, important work.
Yeah.
It is a mission, whether or not you are a 501c3, right?
Yeah, no, and that's that. Thank you for saying that, because I know I worked in corporate America for over 16 years, and I was in biotech. So my background is biochemistry, biotech. So all of the companies I worked in were biotech, and that same feeling of, I worked at big companies, so with 50,000, 100,000 employees. But that mission of we're trying to create this medicine to cure this disease, that's a solid thing that employees want to get behind.
Yeah.
But then the struggle becomes, but if my experience every single day is painful for me, I can't stay here, no matter how much I care.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So can you give us a little bit more about some of the things that you've seen as you've done this work with organization? What patterns do you think that leaders are maybe missing when it comes to these, as a therapist, as an organizational strategist? You are wearing those two, you're bringing those two lenses into this conversation. So burnout is a thing now that everybody talks about, but what patterns have you seen that they are often missing when they're trying to intervene in the burnout space?
Yeah. I think too often we're not intervening at the systems level, right? It's easy to say, oh, well, we're going to add a ping pong table to the break room is something people always joke about, but we're going to say you have unlimited PTO, right? Okay, great. But if you've crafted a culture wherein everybody's going to get a little bit silently judged for taking PTO, it doesn't matter that you say you have unlimited PTO. You're not living that in practice, right? So the interventions often come in at this way where it positions a company as coming across as really caring, and they genuinely think that's what they're doing. But my job is to step back and say, okay, but what is the system actually teaching? And too often it's teaching, this is a failure of individual resilience, right? The other thing I think that really comes up in these mission-driven organizations is your people care. Too often leaders assume, well, people just don't care, and they might care a little bit differently than you care, right? Maybe you're the CFO, so you care more about the bottom line, and then your program manager cares about the client, but everybody cares. And so it's disingenuous and doing everybody a disservice to come from that lens of people just don't care. If we trust people, if we put that level of trust that we're all on the same team and we do really care, we can then actually look point blank, zero-based budget, the system as to what needs to change to craft a culture that feels would actually support the nervous system, right? So think about, you move through the world based on what was modeled for you in childhood. We're going back to like basic neurobiology. What an organization models, right? The head of your company, or we say one thing and we mean another, it teaches us how to show up, and it teaches us how to treat ourselves. I would get to the point with myself of, well, I must just not be trying hard enough because look at so and so. They're able to pull it out, whip it through, answer their email at 10 p.m., right? So thinking about it at a systems level would be that first idea. And then coming back to understanding what you're modeling, because that's where you can actually intervene.
I love it. Yeah. And if it's normalized, if certain things are normalized, then if
Yes,
you have an issue, you become the problem.
exactly. And, I'm so cognizant of when I speak to this coming across as like idealistic, right? You've got employees who are sitting there and going, oh, yeah, but this is never going to change. And I'm not asking you to change. Now, I do hope there is a level of intervention just in hearing, hey, it's not a you problem. This is actually more of a systems design issue, right? Because that will hopefully relieve some of that internal striving to reach that goal, for lack of a better word, of finally figuring it all out, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think naming it is an intervention in and of itself for an employee. And on the other token, can we, as mission driven humans, really help to craft a narrative to call each other in and say, like, hey, I know we're all on the same page here. Here's where the breakdowns are happening. It's not personal, but these relational patterns and breakdowns between our team members are the stumbling blocks. And we're going to keep feeling stuck in these patterns until we work through them.
Yeah. I love that. And one of the things you said that I got kind of stuck on is the people assuming, one of the mistakes is leaders assuming people don't care.
Yeah.
People care. They just
So
care
much.
differently. And I do a lot of work in my employee resource group consulting. So I do a lot of work around ERGs. And I am in that space between the ERG leaders and the ERGs and leadership.
Yeah.
And that's often part of the mindset that they say in so many words, like, we give them this is what they care about. How do you know that's what they care about?
Right.
Have you talked to them? Have you
Right.
listened? Have you asked them? Right.
Yep.
You assume people care. Everybody cares about something.
Yep.
And if they work at your organization, they probably care about your mission. I mean, but
even
then
if they're just there for the paycheck, they still
even
care.
if
They're
they
still
care,
invested.
they care about their paycheck. Exactly. So people care.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that because I love the way you put it. It's a mistake as a leader, as somebody in a decision making space, to assume that people don't care.
Yeah.
I think that's a lazy excuse.
Yeah.
To try and not do the work and to try and not position yourself in a listening space. People do care, but they care about something more than the perspective that you bring is very different from what they bring.
And it's okay to care about it in different ways. You still care, right?
Exactly.
It's actually the beauty of having those multiple perspectives. We can't all care for the same reasons, or else nothing would get done.
Exactly. You see all the thing with LinkedIn now. People are like, oh, your employees don't care about the pay. They care about no. Some employees care about the pay.
Yeah,
for some people, that's their motivation.
You're gonna love this. There was a TikTok meme back when I was on TikTok many years ago of, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I do not dream of labor. And I have taught my 3-year-old to, if somebody asks her what she wants to be when she grows up, she says, I do not dream of labor. And then she tells you she wants to be a doctor. But it is inherently, our worth is our productivity in current society, right? And the thing I want people to know, your exhaustion is information about the system's failings, not your personal failings or your level of commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. We went deep into the work piece of it because I definitely saw an opportunity to layer in some questions and insights from you that brings my work as well. But as we close this out, I want to bring it back to your intersections that you shared earlier. So if there's anybody listening that can relate with you at sort of the things you were interested in, the things you studied, the work you ended up doing, the transition into a different space, right? Maybe they are earlier in their career, or maybe they are navigating some difficult decisions right now, on transition decisions, what are some advice you will give them that works for you, but that you are also recommending for your clients now as you're working with them?
Yeah. You're never going to feel caught up. That's something I had to learn. I'm still learning, right? But if you keep making it a personal performance problem, you're just chasing your tail, right? So sitting with that real hard reality of there really is a limited amount of time and you have a limited amount of bandwidth. And rather than chasing this carrot, this goal that doesn't actually exist of I'll finally feel on top of it or they'll recognize me when, kind of taking up space for yourself and knowing, okay, this is actually my boundary, right? And starting to experiment a little bit with where I can gently push back on a system. I'm going to try not answering a Slack message after 8 p.m. I'm going to try declining a meeting request without giving a reason. Like just gently seeing, even if you can't rewrite the org chart, you can model different behaviors, intentional ways of showing up in your work, preventing your own level of burnout, right? Tending to your own nervous system. And when you model that, it means you're not passing that dysfunction downstream.
Yeah. One of the best email signatures that I've seen is the comment where people put of like, I'm responding to these or I'm sending you this message at a time that works for me.
Yep, absolutely.
Take the time to respond to these when it works for you. And I think that's important to put, especially when you're somebody that works with people globally.
Yeah. 100%.
I work in the evening, but it's Pacific time.
Yeah.
I work in the evening in Pacific time. And so that doesn't mean you respond. So when I'm sending emails in the evening, that's a chunk of a few hours that I put in on my work calendar because I stop work, attend to dinner, attend to the kids, and then when they go to bed, I do maybe another 2 hours, right? And that's okay. That works for me. But that doesn't mean if it works for me, right? If you're getting my message at I don't know, in the middle of the night, I don't expect you to, but I did discover this thing called scheduling that I absolutely love. Because I schedule the emails to go out in the morning at 8 a.m. I am not at my computer at 8 a.m. sending emails.
I think you are. So
exactly. So I try to be respectful of people's time zone to not allow the emails to land in their inbox at 3 a.m.
Yep.
But then if I'm emailing somebody on the in Europe, it's early for them. So I just send it. So again, I appreciate it that people remind others that I have my own boundaries. You set yours. You know, if you need to let us know, but don't work with my boundaries because my life is different from yours.
Yeah. And just giving each other some grace, right? That's what I heard in there of like, oh, if I get an email at a weird time, rather than getting grumpy that I got it, I'll assume that's when they were working, right? And that's okay. And they don't expect me to email them back at 3 a.m. or what have you. Although there's some cultures that do.
And some people, I think that's part of where my husband used to do this thing where you, if somebody calls and he can't talk, he will pick up the phone to tell you, I'll call you right back. And I don't work like that. If I can't talk, then I ignore it. I let it go to voicemail and then I call you back. So we would have conversations about that. We'll have conversations about that. I'm like, if I can't pick up my phone, I can't pick it up. I mute it, I silent it, and I ignore it. If it's an emergency, unfortunately, I can't be everybody's emergency.
Yes. Yeah.
Hopefully somebody has multiple emergency points. There are multiple people that I know I'm on their emergency list. And so even if I can't pick at that time, I will call them back immediately. Right? Because I know I'm their backup. But thank you so much. I think bringing the corporate experience and the clinical experience, I do have to ask you this final question. What does thriving mean to you right now that maybe has shifted over the years?
Yeah. Thriving means being able to set my own intentional boundaries. And I'm still working on not feeling guilty about that. So maybe right now it just means being able to sit with that guilt and set the boundary anyway. Because the guilt is conditioned, right? But I got to put my own oxygen mask on first. I can't be anybody else's therapist or advisor or speaker or mother or daughter until I take care of my own needs. And that's not selfish, that's just sustainable leadership.
Absolutely. I love it. Well, it's been great to learn about your journey, your work, all of the layers you bring
Wise.
into the work that you're doing. And my last question is going to feel off, but I'd love to close on a very light note, especially because all our conversations end up being a lot of deep topics.
Yeah.
So this is a food question.
Ooh.
If you were to share a meal, it could be a meal, it could be a fruit. If you were to break bread with your co-workers, what would you pick and why?
Ooh. The first thing that comes to mind is pizza. Specifically, and I'm going to be lambasted for this, I can feel it, black olive pizza, because my grandparents used to put, and they still do, a can of black olives in the Christmas stocking every year. Because when they were on base, many years ago, it was hard to get black olives. So I still do that for my daughter's Christmas stocking. I love black olive pizza, and pizza to me is the thing that I would share with my castmates after a rehearsal when I was 12 years old doing Cats the musical in, downtown Frederick, Maryland. So pizza has that communal, like we're all around the table just grabbing a slice informality for me. And then it's got that little yeah, that is why I like black olives, isn't it?
I love it. I know you make me, I'm not necessarily attached to black olives. I eat it. But now you make me think about it. And I don't think I necessarily... Okay, veggie pizza. Some veggie pizzas, when I do have them, they had black olives.
There's not a bad olive. I think all olives are good. So,
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for sharing with me. Thank you for the work you're doing in the world. Keep thriving in intersectionality and keep, leading and inspiring us along the way.
Thank you. And you as well. Thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure.
For everyone listening, we have a way for you to send us mail directly for each episode now. So check the show note. What did you think about this conversation with Ashley? If you want to drop a note specifically for this episode, we'd love to hear your thoughts and your biggest takeaway. And follow us, share the podcast, and looking forward to hearing feedback from you. Thank you.